Welcome to the Educational Passport Foundation. With the support of Epf.Africa Youth Association and United Nations online volunteers, we have highlighted real stories regarding migration, education, poverty, and unemployment in the Republic of the Gambia and Zimbabwe. We invite you to watch and discover the current challenges and implications in these countries so that we can learn how to help solve them and support the communities.
Hi everyone, we are Epf.Africa, EPF. I am Alaji.
And I'm Alicia.
Today we have Dr. Momodou SALLAH, PhD, MPhil, MA, Professor of Teaching and Learning. He's also the Director of Center for Academic Innovation and a Reader in Globalisation and Global Youth Work at the Montfort University, UK. He's the founding director of Global Hands, which is a social enterprise/charity operating in the Gambia and UK, with a focus on capacity building and social good. In June 2013, he was awarded a National Teaching Fellowship by the UK Higher Education Academy.
In November 2015, he was named the most innovative teacher in the UK by Times Higher. He has more than 20 years experience working with young people at local, national and international levels, from being the young director of Gambia Red Cross Society to a senior youth worker at Leicester City Council UK. Dr. SALLAH has numerous publications in the field of poverty, work with Black young people, young Muslims and globalisation, as well as global youth work. His research interests include diversity, participatory methodologies, globalization in relation especially to young people, and public engagement. His goal is to improve global education and raise awareness. We will listen to his opinions on global education, the impact on young people, and the involvement of them.
Dr. SALLAH, we are so pleased to have you here. Thank you so very much for joining us. We are going to have his inputs about poverty and its correlations to lack of educational opportunities, global education, irregular migration, and many more.
Thank you, Alaji. So just to tell you a little bit more about Epf.Africa EPF Foundation, it's the foundation that aims to support underprivileged young people in communities of the Gambia and Zimbabwe through education. Most young people in these countries are lack one of the fundamental rights of human being, that is to have access to quality education. And this is mainly caused by poverty and lack of financial assistance. For the concern, Epf.Africa EPF Foundation came up with an initiative to help support these people for them to be able to achieve their goals and prepare them for a better and productive future that they deserve. Alaji, if you want to go start asking questions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that, Alicia. That was quite an impressive introduction of EPF right there. So so Dr. SALLAH, I will start with, I know we've said a lot about your career, your basically your resume, but do you have anything that you want to add on to your educational and professional background?
Thank you very much, Alaji, and thank you, Alicia, and thank you to the organization as well for inviting me to share my experience. I see myself, Alicia and Alaji, as a scholar activist. I'm interested in academia, in the production of knowledge, and in this light, I am now a professor of teaching and learning at the Montfort University, where I have taught for the past 17 years. And I've taught around social work, around youth and community development, around globalization, around diversity. But alongside that, I also consider myself an activist. I don't only see myself as somebody isolated within the ivory tower. I'm also interested in how knowledge can be applied to change the world and also for social good. So I'm also involved equally in activities and activism that seeks to transform society. So these are the two kind of like two stances I almost walk from one to the other in the symbiotic process. So that's me. I'm also a poet. I try to write poetry. Also, I feel that I'm a farmer because I've got a farm. I try to farm. So I try to be it's difficult to define myself, but I'm many things. But the most kind of like known parts of what I do is one in academia, in terms of teaching, learning, and also in activism in terms of trying to do social good and to transform society. So in a nutshell, that's me.
Wow, that's really impressive. I mean, looking at what you're like, listening to you, what you're saying right now, this is something that every young person should, embody, because we don't have to, just, tether in one place to say this is what I want to do. We need to be versatile because, God gave us the talent, the brain, to be able to maneuver and then do things in life, that, we're going to benefit from and other people around us going to benefit from. So you having a PhD and you saying you are a farmer, you know what I mean? Like the society we from, we kind of, we frown on farming and all those things, when we get in that kind of knowledge. So it's very important for you to say that, because young people are going to be watching it and they're going to follow your footsteps, and then the future is going to be better for us. Yeah. So I will follow up a question with that, and then I will ask you to, as a Gambian, I will ask you this question: how was life for you, growing up in the Gambia?
Yeah, thank you, Alhaji. I think it was pretty ordinary because I spent the first half of my life, as I like to joke, in the Gambia, and the second half of my life in the UK. And I was born in Banjul, and when I was 5 years old, we moved around to Pipeline, and I stayed until I was in primary three. Then I moved to Old Joshua, and then from there I lived until when I came to the UK to study. So I was like, so we did all of that stuff where we actually played four corners, and during the holiday we took people's boats and went across the across the river to get some fish, and we had the normal fights, and we played football. I had a very ordinary kind of like bringing my kind of like we were not affluent, so we went through the struggles, and we had to do what we had to do, and I guess that's important in keeping me grounded, in terms of understanding where I come from. And we didn't come from a place where we had too much, and we had to work hard, and we have to graft, and I think it's important to understand that. But then I was also quite active in the Red Cross, and before I left the Gambia, I rose to be the National Youth Director of the Red Cross. So all of that thing about volunteering, learning first aid, and also mobilizing young people across the country. I learned a lot through that. I was also involved in the Students' Union, and I remember when Yaya Jammeh took over in '94, I was the acting president of the Gambia Students' Union. So we actually issued a press release calling the government illegal and unconstitutional, which obviously at that time did not go down well. So I was like, I liked activism and mobilizing students and kind of like, and I learned so much. Like you said, I have studied up to PhD level, but the amount of learning that happened during my time with the Red Cross and the Students' Union was far more than anything else I've learned up to PhD level, because I learned to work with people, I learned to understand emotions, I learned to organize, I learned to solve problems. So that was quite important. So, and even before I came to the UK, I set up an organization called Youth Association for Advancement, which was just a group of us who felt like there were many problems around Old Joshua, and we wanted to do something about it. I remember when we started, we had nothing, so we had to buy the second-hand shoes and put them on wheelbarrows and went from house to house to sell them in order to raise enough money to organize like a festival, and then to organize a
Wow.
and because that economic independence was important to me, because I grew up where we saw a lot of aid and a lot of projects failing because there was no aid. So I have got a particular kind of fondness for economic independence, and we don't wait for anybody. With or without funding, we will do what we have to do. And I remember that we did some really important things, like a street was always kind of like full of rubbish, and I think it was causing a lot of infestation for mosquitoes, and also people getting a lot of malaria around the streets. So we just mobilized the young people, went and scoop up all the rubbish, got it transferred somewhere, put a lot of gravel in there, stop the festering. So just simple things like that. Or look at the primary school, which was dilapidated and was so full of dust that, God knows how students were able to learn there. But just raise the money and be able to just lay the concrete, the cement, and then repaint the whole place and rejuvenate the place. So just things like that. As an 18, 19-year-old, these were the things we were doing because we were interested in change. So yeah, Gambia had very fond memories. I have very fond memories of Gambia. And, of course, you remember the mangoes and chasing each other and going to catch, the squirrels and the digs and all that kind of stuff. We did all that kind of stuff. Yes, it was always fun, and remembering going to the Atlantic Ocean to swim, and our parents would say, "Do not swim there because the sea has no branches you can hold on to when you're drowning." And then you go there and then you swim and you come back, and then your parents would know. Oh, so you've been at this. How do you know? Also, you have to learn to actually go to the tap and wash your face and your hands for you. So yes, we did all that kind of stuff. So I had good, very, very, but also I had very good family, extended family system. My auntie was a Christian, so during Christian feast, we'll go there. And during, Eid and Muslim faiths, my family will come here. The peaceful coexistence, the good neighborliness, where the whole street will discipline you and not only your parents. So yeah, I had very, very good memories of growing up, positive childhood. But also it was one that to this day influenced me, because you see poverty and suffering, and you see people who are born in poverty and suffering, and you see them live all their lives in poverty and suffering, and they will die in poverty and suffering. You see people die because we could not provide medication, basic medication. They could not afford it. It was the time of the World Bank and Economic Recovery Program and Program for Sustained Development and all these other programs that were injected into Africa to make Africa better. But you see that it was all about deregulation and opening up markets and promoting privatization and actually stopping state intervention within the services that were being provided, that were needed by the people. And so these were things that I did not only read in theory, these were things that I experienced with redundancies, with poverty, absolute poverty. So yes, I think growing up in the Gambia taught me a lot, and I learned so much growing up there. And I think it still influences and is the foundation of whatever I do now.
Wow.
Thank you, Dr. Sallah. To carry on our interview, I just wanted to ask, your professional work includes youth education, especially awareness raising. Can you explain us why you choose to work in the field of education in particular?
Yeah. I mean, I've always been an informal educator. So all the work I told you about, the Red Cross, the Students' Union, the Youth Association for Advancement, and award scheme, all these other gates. There was a significant component around informal education. And informal education, it's basically education that happens outside the classroom, but it's very transformative as well. And when I talk about awareness raising, for me, that is different from critical consciousness. Because when you raise awareness, you actually make some people aware of some issues. But the critical consciousness goes beyond that. Critical consciousness means that the people actually are able to locate their oppression and their suffering within the very structures of society and develop the agency to be able to transform the lives that they live. So, for example, let's be aware about poverty in other parts of the world, as a lot of young people in the UK would be. But what is the link between that poverty of those people out there and the life that we live here? If the success of the West is based on the misery of the South, how do we make those connections? That the exploitation, that the deregulation that we promote in other parts of the world to open up their markets, to suck up their wealth. For example, whatever the CFR was doing for the past, how many 1950, 1960, just actually to be able to support France, and how people in France benefit from that, and how that actually accelerates growth and development within some Francophone countries. That connection, the connection between, for example, the World Bank, where about 50% of the shares are actually owned by by the G8 or so. or the fact that a report at one time found that about 75% of World Bank projects end up in failure. But again, you need to understand what is happening at the personal, at the local, at the national, and the global levels, and to make those connections, so that it is not only within your within your immediate locality that you try to address these problems, but you need to understand that they're inextricably linked to events and activities and historicities in other parts of the world. And I think that is the kind of provoking consciousness. If you talk about poverty, if you talk about underdevelopment, you talk about, for example, secondhand clothes. Secondhand clothes, a lot of us in the West are quite happy to donate it so that we can take it to charity to Africa. But what is the impact of that on local industries? How did destroy the cotton industry, the local industries within those countries, like the importation of all of these foods, and almost you look at a country like Gambia, it still imports a lot of tomato, a lot of cement, a lot of rice, a lot of chicken, a lot of that, and you ask yourself, why is the country not able to do that? But even because there was a study that showed that if Africa increase its its trade with other parts of the world by 1 or 2%, that's more than all the aid that they're getting. So, but you also have these barriers that exist. For example, if you want to taxation and all the other regulations that are in place to de-incentivize trade from taking part. So you need to understand. So critical consciousness actually calls for a deeper understanding and almost conscientization of those issues, rather than just talking about, I know about, aid is not good. But how is it not good? And why is it not good? And how is it linked to the daily existence of those farmers that I'm talking about at the grassroots inside a party or in some other parts of the world? And I think that, so when I work with some of the big organizations, like I've worked with Oxfam in terms of their staff and global education, I've worked with White Care International, which two of which are quite big in terms of global education or development education, and other big organizations. And my challenge to them is that the focus has always been about how we raise awareness and how we get young people to take part in our campaigns. But actually, it's not necessarily about provoking critical consciousness. Because when you provoke critical consciousness, it's not something, consciousness, as Sankara and all the others argue, it's not something that you give to somebody. It is something that somebody earns through and relearning. And I think that process of learning and relearning, so that your constructed reality, because how you construct reality is how you see the world, and therefore how you socialize with the world. So how do we change the way that the narrative has always been that, there's nothing we can do to change the way things are. And I believe that there's always something we can do.
Absolutely.
Things are. But part of the narrative is actually developing that conscious, that confidence to be able to take action that brings about change. So, provoking conscious. In fact, one of my books is called Global Youth Work: Provoking Consciousness and Taking Action. So you can check it out. A lot about one of the first rules of global youth work is not necessarily to raise awareness, but to provoke consciousness. And once consciousness has been provoked, then you support people to take action that is commensurate with their abilities at the personal, local, national, and global levels. So I don't believe in just getting young people to wear T-shirts and to wear banners, and so what? I want the agency of the people, especially young people we work with, to be developed so they are able to take independent action that changes the world.
Wow. That is amazing, brother. To add on to that, creating a consciousness, around the masses to prevent misleading information and potential brainwashing methods, is very needed, in our community, because the growth of any society is enhanced by young of that society. So those young should have a progressive mind to be able to effect change for the betterment of that society, and not depend on false and toxic information that like what's going on around in our communities, this generation right now. You talked about the way you grew up in Banjul and in Serakunda and all of that. It's totally different. Looking at it, it's totally different from what we have now. So we need to spread, this consciousness around. We need to have these kind of conversations, so our young people, can, know the route to take for a better future for us, and this information that we are having, the toxic and false information, will never. It's only going to create backwardness for us, And as Africans, and I think we need to evolve from that kind of mindset and do better, as a society, collectively, we should, try to, engage, the youth by giving them educational opportunities and give them skills, not only hands-on skills, but also the skills on how to challenge civilly things like injustice, corruption, and peacefully, standing against authoritarian rules, because that consciousness is part of, something that is lack of that consciousness is been affecting us, in our law and law and order. A lot of people don't know their rights. They don't know even the Constitution. The rights that are stipulated in that Constitution for them. So they can abide by it. This will broaden their minds, and they will lead. They will understand. Their purpose and values, and the vital contributions they can make to impact everyone and anyone around them, and to contribute to their national development, to be able to sustain and maintain our resources. I think this is imperative for every society that wishes to thrive.
I wanted to respond because I think you mentioned education, and
Right.
I think that education is the most powerful tool for transformation. But at the same time, what kind of education are we talking about? Because a lot of my talk, because how knowledge is constructed, ways of knowing and ways of being are not just things out there; they're constructed, especially human meaning making. So the configuration, the sanctification, the validation, the dissemination of knowledge is done from particular perspectives. And the education that particularly we've received in many parts of the world has been a very colonial-based education. And it's about not only decolonizing the curriculum, but decolonizing the institutions that embody education. So if we give education that has been very colonized and very tainted from colonial lenses, we're just reproducing kind of like all of these disempowering discriminations that exist. So the question becomes, and not only how do we decolonize education, how do we decolonize the legal system, how do we decolonize the political system, how do we decolonize the economic system? Because these were not geared towards solving the problems of southern-based countries like the Gambia. They were geared towards a Washington consensus, which is about deregulation, privatization, and exploitation, because capitalism has got no soul or no heart. But people would argue capitalism is the worst alternative. But the question becomes, how do we humanize it? How do we give it a soul? How do we give accountability, to those who are less fortunate? So when we talk about the education system, whether formal or informal, I have placed a lot of premium on how we decolonize that. Not only education, but the army. Like, what were the armies used for in the past? They were used for subjugation and to keep people in line. Now, does the Gambia, in my opinion, need a standing army like it has now? Or do we need to have more engineering corps that will actually be more about building and farming and all that kind of stuff? And of course, the debate that we can have. The legal system, is it decolonized enough? The political system, is it what works for us? So how do we? So that's why when you talk about when you mention education, Alaji, it triggered kind of my defense mechanism, and then I just wanted to push back on what kind of education are we talking about? Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Sallah. The time is up for now. To watch more of Dr. Sallah's interview, please stay tuned for next week. During the meantime, please follow, like, and share our videos with friends and family. In addition, do not forget to donate. Even $1 is enough so that we can reach our goal to help less privileged. Thank you so much. Bye.
The Educational Passport Foundation. We turn dreams into actions.